Part 2 is here. Does it end this story with a bang or with a whimper? Let's find out. What is going on, everybody? Tom Chattelbash here, and if you love movies and TV like I do, then rest assured you are in the right place. And without further ado, let's review Wicked for Good, the second and final part of this adaptation of the Broadway smash Wicked. Now, Wicked for Good takes place shortly after the events of the first Wicked film, where Elphaba is now deemed the Wicked Witch of the West. She's an outcast now, she's in hiding, she's making these calculated public appearances in order to sway the citizens of Oz's opinion of the wizard, who she feels needs to have a comeuppance so that Oz can return to its former glory. And Glinda has now risen through the ranks of the power hierarchy of Oz, where she has everything she could possibly ever want, while her best friend is being hunted day in and day out by her husband-to-be, Fiyero. And yeah, then you got part 2, which definitely ups the scope visually and on an emotional level. Now, the first Wicked film was a huge pleasant surprise for me. I went into that movie with such low expectations, mainly just because, I wasn't as rabid of a fan of the Wicked show as so many other people are. I mean, I saw it, 20 years ago, back when I was in 6th grade, so I don't remember anything about that play. But I was so happily surprised by how much I enjoyed that film, especially Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba and Glinda. They were so good, and the music was so good, and I just felt like it was such a fun musical experience, and a really epic one too. So naturally, I was really excited for the second and final installment, even though from what I had heard, the second part of the show, which this film covers, is very polarizing, to say the least, among fans. Now, I will say this from the outset. I think Wicked for Good is not as good as its predecessor, but it's still damn good, and it gives fans plenty of what they loved about that first film, and then a little bit more. And it definitely does some things differently, and it has a different look, tone, and feel, and I kind of loved it for that. Now, first and foremost, this sequel has two incredible weapons at its disposal once again, and that is Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, who are just so damn good as these characters. It's really hard to possibly imagine any other two performers doing these characters justice the way they have. Their chemistry is so damn good. They've really made this relationship, this friendship, feel so lived in, authentic, so well developed, that anytime these two are on screen together, it is just electric. And what I love about the sequel is how it explores the fractured nature of their friendship. They still love each other, but they can't be the friends they once were given their new circumstances. So every time they cross paths, it feels so heartbreaking and bittersweet, because you can tell they want to connect. They want to return to the former glory days where they were able to be best friends and enjoy each other's company, but they can't. And you feel that yearning, you feel that heartbreak, you feel that love. And a lot of the times it's unspoken, because these performers are so good where they can speak 1,000 words with just a glance or facial twitch, and it's so impressive. And Ariana Grande has surprised the hell out of me in these two films, and I can't wait to see what she does next. She's phenomenal, but Erivo, once again, powerhouse performance. Both of them so damn good here. And the supporting cast, once again, is really solid. Jonathan Bailey has a lot more to do here as Fiyero, and I really liked seeing the more vulnerable side of Fiyero, this Fiyero that has this anguish inside of him because, he's forced to hunt down the woman he truly loves while he's set to marry a woman he doesn't, and it's just really fascinating to watch. And I think the arc of his character is really interesting and really compelling, and I think Bailey gets to show different sides to Fiyero here and really play to his strengths. And as for the film itself, John M. Chu, who also helmed the first film, I think his direction is a lot better in this installment here. I think the musical sequences have a lot more visual panache and a lot more dynamic, playful, and even thoughtful camera work that I think really lends well to those musical sequences that I felt like was missing in a lot of the sequences in the first film. A lot of the musical numbers in this one just feel more lively. They feel a little bit more energetic, a lot more colorful for sure. And I just felt like he had more fun this time around, strangely enough, even though this is the darker half of the story. I mean, unlike in the first film, I felt like the smaller musical numbers could stand toe-to-toe with the grander one, just with the way that they're staged, blocked, filmed, where there just felt like there was a lot more creativity on display, where those numbers didn't feel as, underwhelming as they did in that first film whenever there was maybe like a okay ballad. And this is a sequel that is far bigger in scope than its predecessor, where there are bigger action sequences, bigger set pieces, a lot more going on. I mean, Chu is juggling so many plates narratively that any other director would be dizzy at this point, but I think he's handling it all with a deft, assured hand. And I think for the most part, he does a really great job telling the story that has so much narrative ground to cover that sometimes it's just too much to handle. I mean, this film moves at a breakneck pace. I do feel like the first film definitely had some pacing issues here and there, especially for a film that was nearly 3 hours. This one is, 2 hours and 20 minutes or so, so it's definitely a shorter film. But I feel like the faster pacing in this one is actually a detriment to the film because I feel like some storylines and characters feel shortchanged or truncated, especially there's a storyline involving Elphaba's sister and, her love interest that I feel like didn't get nearly enough time as it should have in order to really deliver that heartbreak that it ultimately does. And I also feel like some of the other supporting characters, like Michelle Yeoh's character from the first film and Jeff Goldblum's The Wizard, I feel like those characters, they don't have as much to do this time around, or they don't have as good material, and it just kind of feels like they also get a little bit wasted here and there, and it's a bit of a bummer considering the talents of those two. But I think my biggest issue with this film is how it slavishly attempts to tie into The Wizard of Oz, especially in the last half where it's really, throwing all these different nods and characters at you and little story threads that you remember from the original film, where it just feels uninteresting. Where that's the most uninteresting part of this film is when it ties into The Wizard of Oz. When it's doing its own thing, when it's carving its own path, that's when it's its most compelling and magnetic. But when it's walking the yellow brick road, that's when I'm the most checked out and wanting to return to what we were doing before. But in the end though, I think Wicked for Good is a damn good sequel. I think like its predecessor, it's able to stand on its own as a really effective standalone film, but as one cohesive, epic story, it also works in that regard as well. And I feel like that's where you have a good two-parter, where both films are good on their own. They don't need each other in order to be enjoyable, but when you bring them together, it's a really complete, emotionally satisfying experience, and that's what you get with Wicked Part 1 and Wicked for Good. So in the end, I'm going to give Wicked for Good 4 out of 5 stars. Like I said, it's got its issues, but I still really enjoyed this sequel. I love the musical numbers, I love the performances, I love the scope, I love the more playful, thoughtful direction here. I had a really good time with this one. It made me emotional. I was so invested in the story and in these characters, and I left the film very satisfied, and I do feel like this film works as 2 parts. It justifies the 2 parts in my mind, so I enjoyed this one. Hits theaters this Friday, and when you do see it, let me know in the comments below what you think of the movie. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you think it's just okay? Let me know down below, and until next time, everybody, I'm Tom Chattelbash, YouTube's most reliable movie critic.